This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
$5 o'clock. I don't know what time is.
It's recording there too.
Can you tell me, Omar, did they approve the minutes?
Yes.
The last meeting of the 25th? Because I didn't see any County June 2nd minutes yet, so we're going to move on. There's not a lot of members of the public here, so just so everybody knows, I'm going to skip public speak. It's not required by open meeting law. And since we had a 2-hour public speak June 2nd, I apologize for not being there to watch that. I'm not really that sorry, but I'm a little too honest. Anyway, we're not going to do public speak tonight because there's ample opportunity for people to speak and that we can get emails, etc.
Here he is.
Right there. You didn't have June 2nd minutes, right, Tom? Right. I didn't see them yet. Oh, were you a little busy that night?
A little bit. There's kind of had a couple things going on.
So I just announced we're not doing public speak tonight because we had a 2-hour time the other night, and there's plenty of opportunity for people to speak. And we got a lot to go over because we forgot some things. So I'm going to share my screen immediately. Omar, if anybody wants to come in, please let them in.
I will need this space to use. Sorry.
This
Oh no. The carbon copy?
debt and interest, this is the debt and interest budget. We're going to start with debt and interest, which is what skipped the other night. Can we see all that? Do I have to make that smaller a little bit? Got the entire budget now.
That's good.
If I go up, is that too much?
Too much. Unless you scooch it over to the...
We don't need the numbers, we just need...
Yeah.
All right, that's the whole thing, right there.
No, it's got a, you don't see 23.
Okay, never mind. Anyway, for those who don't understand this, and I will ask Hadel to explain anything, this is a history of the debt we're paying. The top is the principal, correct? This is principal,
Yes.
Hadel?
Yes.
And the bottom is interest on all the debt we have.
Yes.
The Maple School, which is the biggest debt we have, you'll notice that the budget from 2022 was $2,425,000. It's going down. Primarily because we're paying it down faster. And the interest for that project is also going down. Can you tell me, Hadel and everybody, what is MWPAT principal subsidy, both in interest and principal? What does that mean?
Can I defer this to Jessica?
All right, Jessica, fine.
She's the treasurer. She takes care of the...
I'm not, I have to admit, Jessica, you came in after this budget was prepared,
Yes.
so if I don't ask the proper person, it's because I'm not sure.
That's okay.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
Nope, that's fine. So it's it used to be Mass Water, anyways, it's Mass Clean Water Trust for sewer and water projects. The principal subsidy and interest subsidy,
So we get a subsidy to pay that?
we do.
So that's coming from the state or something?
Usually they do a reduction on the loan and interest. So it just may be set up a little bit differently here than I'm familiar with.
So I can explain the setup.
Okay.
There you go.
There you go.
So everybody speak up
Team.
loudly so that thing can hear you.
Yeah. So the setup wise, we budget this as an expense on to the budget itself, and when at the end of the fiscal year, I do a journal entry, which the revenue which we received, it offsets this expense. And if I remember this correctly, this is the last year we have to budget for this category. Next year we won't see this line.
Okay. But I'm correct that our interest and principal payments are going down, so there's a negative. That's why this is listed as reduced in the overall general.
Yes.
We still have $660,000 in principal to pay this year for the high school. How many more years we have in the high school? About 10?
I think it was 20 year, right?
20 years originally.
For, oh,
They
so how
just
many?
It was just refinanced though.
Yes.
So it's gotta be maybe 9.
9.
Okay. Good. There's one thing I want to say. We are by law required to pay our debts. So,
What?
in other words, come July 1, we have to have the budget at least to pay the debts. Otherwise, I don't know what happens if we default. It's probably a bad thing, right? Bonds go off someplace?
Yes.
Anybody have any other questions on the debt and interest? Tom, Connie, Homo.
Well, we have to pay them, so.
That was my other question.
Guess there's not much to talk about.
Well, you get a month's grace on the mortgage. I don't think we get a month's grace on our debt, I think.
No.
No. Speak up!
If they don't get it by noon the day it's due, they'll be calling.
And it probably costs us a fine, or
I've never been there, I'll tell you that.
let's not start a trend. All right. So
That's
we're
great to
done
hear.
with that. We're going to move to the police and dispatch budget, which was not available the night it was done with public safety. I have some questions and I'll begin, but I have to find it first. If I go by it. There's dispatch, police. I usually, Bob, before I get into the numbers, I usually let the department heads speak to their year and what they do. If there's any page in the narrative you'd like me to stop on, I will. Trends are interesting.
Yes. So, good evening, everyone. I apologize for missing the last meeting. Out of my control, unfortunately, but here I am. So, I'll start with staffing and trends. We are super busy, really busy. Just to date, our calls for service from 2021 to 2022, to date, we have 2,500 more calls already this year than we did last year. So we're extremely busy. We have 29 full-time officers, 10 part-time officers, and a full-time civilian office manager. What I'll touch on too is with the police reform law and post, it essentially eliminates us being able to hire specials or part-time officers. So that, where they augment our shifts for $20 an hour, those shifts are going to have to be filled with overtime once we deplete our special police officers or existing ones. So as of July 1st last year, we couldn't hire any more part-time police officers due to the police reform bill and the post. One thing that is working really, really well is our co-response with a CSO clinician. We share Emma is her name. We share her with Hadley Police. We got a grant for that. So she's here every Monday, Wednesday, and alternates Fridays. And she's in Hadley Tuesday, Thursdays. She's been extremely helpful, extremely busy. There's a tremendous amount of work there. Ideally, down the road, I'd like to get her full time, just solely for us, and not split duties with Hadley. But that was the grant, was to split her duties with Hadley.
How does that work, Bob? The officer gets a call, or you get a call at dispatch, a mental health issue?
Yep.
You automatically go for this person from Hadley, or do you both go there? I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so she would, when she's in town, she's assigned to a cruiser, and when we get those mental health calls that come in, she'll respond with a police officer, and the police officer's job is to make sure that the scene is safe, and then Emma does her thing. She does, like I said, she does an amazing job. But our primary goal with those types of calls is to make sure that the scene is safe for Emma, and that she can do her evaluations. And like I said,
Is she only available to Easthampton when she happens to be in Easthampton?
no, and this actually happened yesterday. She wound up going to Hadley. So we can call and request her if we have a call that we need her to go on. If she's in Hadley, she'll come to Easthampton. And if she's in Easthampton, she needs to go to Hadley, she will do that.
It's gonna take a minute to get between.
I'm sorry?
It's gonna take a minute to get.
Oh, yeah, yeah, absolutely, yeah. But it actually happens often where she winds up here and having to go to Hadley or vice versa.
Well, this is an excellent program, and I concur, we need to get more people involved, more professionals, so that we can have a full-timer.
Absolutely.
So we're gonna look into that. Camera grant? What are we doing with cameras?
So we applied for a body-worn camera grant, and we got it. And so now we're in the process of developing a policy with the union to implement and roll out body-worn cameras for all of our police officers.
And that policy be published?
Yeah. Matter of fact, the Post Commission sent out yesterday, they emailed out a draft of their, so the Post Commission has a body-worn camera sub-commission, and they're writing rules and legislation and regulation now. So although we're drafting our policy, it's going to be impacted significantly by the Post regulations.
Doesn't work. I'm trying to make it a little bigger so we can see the budgets.
Try like 150.
Yeah, it's hard to read though. Okay, I'm going to go into a couple of things, Bob,
Absolutely.
kind of yes or no answers. And just for the public and for anybody that doesn't know, the original budget from 2022 was purposely conservative by the mayor. And Mayor, you interrupt me if I make a mistake here. It was conservative for both police and fire. We didn't know where our income was coming from. We were unsure. The design was to use supplemental appropriations during the year when money came in from free cash, and so we could fund things like the union contract, which came into play, correct?
Yes.
And the union contract came into play, we got a supplemental appropriation. So for everybody knowledge, remember, this actual to date is January numbers, right?
Yes.
Okay. So the adjusted budget is those supplementals added to this budget for this line, which is police regular, okay? And that is why the increase between here and here isn't as high as you would think, because the actual versus what is requested, something like, the total is something like 3%. How many of these lines, Bob, are union related? In other words, you have overtime pay, you have incentive especially, which is education incentive. We found that out in the fire department, and that's gone up a bunch right here, okay? We have holiday pay, all of these, and sick leave. These are all part of the collective bargaining contract, are they not?
Correct. You're absolutely
So you're required, once you sign the contract, or the mayor is, to
Right.
fund these.
right.
So, given that, and given that you don't have a huge expense line, the expense lines, some of it, bigger ones, are transferred to IT.
Yes.
My concern would be if, and you correct me if I'm wrong, if you received a cut in your budget, I'll just throw a figure out, $100,000, $200,000, you would have to lay people off, because you can't just drop the pay on people.
Absolutely. Right.
That's correct, right?
100%.
The unions get what they get, so the last to be hired are the first to be fired.
Correct.
Because seniority is part of our collective bargaining, and we all support unions, and that's what it is. So, just so the public is aware, because there's talk out there, why are the police getting so much? A lot of it is the contract, and the difference in pay between here, I did some math, I'm not as good as Tom Peake on math, but I tried. The difference here, between here and here, this is actual budgeted, and this is what is budgeted next year, is only about 3.2%. You'll see my little thing there, 102,000. So the increase in the police budget is approximately 3.2%, primarily due to the union contract.
Personal services,
Right.
yes. Yep.
And we have some exciting officers just hired,
We do.
and I would hate to see them go. So I just want to make everybody aware that we're talking personnel here. I mean, you could cut overtime, but overtime seems to be in pretty good shape this year. Again, you budgeted 150. Where are we with overtime now? Because this is January's numbers. The mayor actually reduced it. Where are we now?
I have to go back and check the numbers.
Well, you don't. Do you have anything in your head about where we are at overtime?
I can tell you that we're gonna barely make it through the end of June with our overtime. And I think,
At the 150 mark.
yeah,
Okay.
and I think it's worth noting again that without this part-timers and specials, that overtime line item eventually is gonna go up.
Because the part-timers, they don't get paid quite as much as a full-timer, and
Well,
they can do shifts when someone's on vacation, etc.
Exactly. And again, those are contractual obligations for time off. But once we don't have these part-time officers, we can't hire anymore, and we're paying them $20 an hour to fill in a full-time regular beat, which would be overtime.
And how many people on a shift, say at night, normal? How many cars you have out on the road?
So we don't have a minimum manning. There isn't a minimum manning clause in the contract, but for officer safety purposes, we'll run on the midnight shift. We'll run 3 cars as opposed to 4, and on the 3 to 11 shift, we'll run 4 cars, and then the same thing on the day shift.
So my take on layoffs would be that 3 cars would be reduced to say 2. And or less,
Well,
depending on
it
how
would
much.
depend, right?
Yeah. Which to me is a problem with response time.
Yes.
Because if you're in New City dealing with an accident and you gotta send somebody all the way to deal with a crime in the Plains area, that takes longer if there's not a 3rd car out there patrolling that can get there quicker.
Correct.
I want people to know that that's a concern of mine if we cut police officers.
And I think it's
Response time is an issue for me.
And I think it's important to note that any sort of cuts to the police budget, we won't be able to rely on the state police to augment our shifts or augment our personnel. Northampton, I forget how many years ago, but they wound up doing some significant cuts, and they just about eliminated their whole midnight shift. And the state police told them, you can't rely on us because we're all in the hill towns and we're in the 91 corridor. So I think it's important that folks know that.
So just don't back up.
Correct.
You don't have mutual aid like an officer coming from a different town, like the fire department has mutual aid for a big fire.
We have mutual aid, but they're incident specific, and there's just protocols that we would have to try to. It wouldn't just become Patrol Easthampton. That would be mutual aid.
Okay. Well, I hope there isn't a request to reduce your budget because I am concerned about keeping us safe. I'm done, and I'd like to move it on to Connie.
Yeah, I thought a quick question. So,
If you want me to move this in any way, let me know.
no, I'm trying to understand the incentive piece. Like I heard it for the first time with the fire department, so I'm trying to wrap my head around it. So how long is the contract for the police? Like that, when you sign the contract, how long is that contract good for?
Every 3 years.
So every 3 years?
Yeah.
So let's say I'm a police officer and I get a bachelor's degree. So I have a salary and I get a bachelor's degree on my first year. So that means I would then get the incentive, right? And then my base pay would go up, right? And the second year, I get that incentive again because I have a bachelor's degree, right? You see, I don't understand that.
Yeah, it's the same. So for incentive purposes, ours are education, and we have an EMT incentive as well. So you basically get 24% of your pay for your bachelor's degree every year. Same exact thing with the fire department, and they have paramedic incentives on top of their education incentives. But yeah.
And they get a master's degree incentive too, don't you?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. That's so confusing. Like I have my doctorate, And the only reward that I got was I got to put it on my resume. And
You obviously need a union.
I do have a union, right?
He's a delegate, aren't you?
I'm a delegate.
Oh, we didn't talk. You didn't talk to them about that.
But
Excuse me, just for the people who is in listening to it, if we talk all at the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
time,
yeah. Oh,
then
yeah.
you're gonna be.
Thank you.
so I'm just like, I get I got it, I get an incentive for getting that. I don't understand the every year. That's just my own personal kind of thing. I just don't quite wrap my head around that. But the other question I had was, it's not, I don't think this number is on here, but you purchased some Teslas out of an account, out of a drug forfeiture account. How does that work? And what do you get to use that money for?
So that is for cases that we were involved in, our task force officers were involved in. I was the bulk of it when I was with DEA. And whenever we would either seize property, vehicles, cash, the government would give a percentage of whatever we seized to the participating departments that were in the task force or working that particular case. So over the years, it accumulates, and we still get money coming in from years ago, because the federal court process takes forever.
Sure.
So that money, so the forfeiture money comes to the police department, and it's very, very specific in the law, federal law, how that money can be spent. So it's not like, so that specifically that money, it can't be used to supplant the budget, my budget. It has to be for above and beyond budgetary items. So it doesn't go to the general fund. It just goes to the specific account for the police department.
So when the fire department brings in funds through their Medicare response stuff, that goes to the general fund. But there's a law that says that this can't go to that.
Correct, exactly.
And it's usually used for capital.
Right.
Capital projects are a separate budget, correct? I mean, and the mayor uses free cash or drug forfeiture money or other funds available to pay for these capital expenses, whatever they may be, a new fire truck, a new police
we
cruiser.
spent a lot of money out of drug forfeiture that would have been a capital request that the city would have had to, agree to pay. So we over the years we've done a lot of my capital. Really, for years my chief before me would spend stuff for capital out of the drug forfeiture, so the city wouldn't have to spend it out of free cash, or the city would decide to get our capital. Hazel, do you want to add anything?
For the
Drug forfeiture.
forfeiture now, it's a restricted revenue by the federal, so that needs to be part of the federal grant. We can't put it under general fund, and we can't budget out of it because it's a non-recurring,
Non-recurring?
non-recurring, and for budget we should use only recurring revenues.
But it's only capital whatever for the police department. It's not capital for the city.
Right.
Yes.
Matter of fact, years ago when Mayor Towsend was here, he had petitioned Chief McMahon to use that money to run a line from our generator to City Hall, and the forfeiture folks said absolutely not.
As a backup generator?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we get a lot of federal grants and that have restrictions on
Right.
what you can use them. Anything else, Connie, on the budget?
Not what we talked about, no. Thank you.
Nothing else? Okay, Tom,
I'm all good.
you're good? Omar?
I do have.
Okay.
For the police EMT incentive.
Have you moved this down?
Yep.
Sorry.
There we go.
Look like in 2022 we didn't budget any money, and therefore the adjusted is $18,000. We going up to $10,000 a few months ago, and we budgeted $37,000. Why the increase And why is this incentive is similar to the other one? Is going to keep it give it to the police every year too?
Yep.
And what is $37,000 for the?
So not all of my police officers, only a handful of the police officers have their EMT license. So that number could go up if more police officers went and got their EMT license. So that's based on the handful that we have now that have it. Again, it's very similar to the fire department's EMT, their paramedic EMT, and their education.
And it's going to be like every year. So you got it, you're going to keep getting it. Like it's part of the union contract.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
And that was just negotiated, the last contract.
And if I might, President Gomez,
Yeah, go ahead.
just to interject here, police officers, because they're on the street, and ambulances, because they're in the station, usually arrive at the scene of a accident first. And if there's first aid to be done, they're the ones doing it. So I certainly feel that an EMT person, an officer that has EMT training,
Yep.
is certainly better off for the public. So I just wanted to bring that up because they are people that are out there. They're not coming from the station. And they can do something before the paramedics get there.
I'm not against it. I'm just asking.
No, I just, a lot of what I say is for the public's benefit, okay? I realize everybody in this room knows this. Well, let me finish with, Omar, do you have another one? Because Tom has a question.
No, because the other one that I always is zero is when someone retire, because payback and it's a sick leave incentive buyback.
Right.
We never can predict if someone's gonna retire, right? That's why it's zero.
Tom?
And just to be clear, like, we don't, like, any officer could seek that EMT incentive and we'd be obliged to pay it. So
Yes.
that's just an estimate based on how many people you think are going to either have it or how many people you think are going to seek it
Right.
this year. But it's not something we could be like, we're capping this at blah, 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 don't become an EMT.
Right.
Okay.
No, you're 100% right. Okay. Spot on.
And that number will cover if all the policemen that we have, all police officers, they have the EMT certification or no?
No.
No. So if everybody will have it, you have to get back to the
Yes.
consulate.
Right. Yep.
That's my question.
Yes, Connie, of course.
Again, I don't know what these things mean, right? So, what's a police special?
Those are the part-time officers. So that's a line item for our
Oh, so
part-time.
that's the okay, that's what, okay, got it.
Right.
And then,
This line you made here.
what's the difference between, like, how does it work with, like, I'm an officer, I'm off duty, but I have to go to court. So am I paid for overtime or am I paid for court time? And what's the difference between?
It's the
like-
same.
Oh, it's-
Court time is overtime. So if they're on either their days off or they're not, like if you work midnights and you got to appear in court, that's going to be overtime and that's contractual as well.
So what's the difference between overtime and then court time?
The
How is that?
The court time. So the court time overtime is budgeted with its own line item,
Uh-huh.
and we track the court time. Every officer that goes to court, that court time is tracked.
Oh, I get it.
But if I was on duty and I had to go to court, that's just regular pay?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I see, I get it.
But they have a line item so that if there's overtime being paid to an officer specifically for court, you can track it,
Exactly.
rather than it just being stuck in the regular overtime account. So they're not getting double dipped here.
No,
They're
no,
not getting
no.
overtime and then overtime court. It's one or
Right,
the other.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, and it's specific overtime for court, for trials.
And then I want to come back to the EMT thing. I was trying to. So we went through this cool thing with the fire department, and got to use the jaws of life. It was very exciting. And they whipped out all of these medical bags that they have to carry for EMT stuff. Is that something that you, as trained, like, do the police have in their car medical bags?
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff like that?
Yeah. We have medical bags, we have AEDs in the cruisers.
Uh-huh.
And again, to Councilor Riss' point, we're at medical calls more often than not before the ambulance. And so we have to render aid or save lives.
And they know how to do Narcan, right?
Yes, yeah, every officer carries Narcan on their person.
So even the non-EMT trained they know how to do Narcan.
Yeah, that's part of our first responder training, yeah.
Okay.
And so is that the medical EXP? Is that where like
Yes.
those types of things? Okay.
Yep.
So, okay. So I'm trying
You
to,
mean down the expense line?
yeah. So I'm just trying to understand all these interactions.
I have another question. And it's not a lot of money, probably just for the public to understand. We have 3 different lines. And one is the food and food services, supplies, books, and periodical. And the other one is equipment. Why do you buy with the food and food services supplies, the books? And what equipment do you get with only $750?
So,
Let me go one by one.
yeah, which,
First, the food and food services is $54.90. It's $500. And the books is $1,000. And the equipment is $750.
Wait, Adobe and
I know it's not a lot of money,
Right.
just
No.
probably to understand why.
I understand. So for the food and food supplies, we've always had money in there for if the officers are working a long investigation, or if they don't have an opportunity to get a meal break. Sometimes we would, my old chief, me, we would, if they're working a lengthy investigation, we would like order pizza or get some food. What was the other one?
The books,
So the books,
55.11.
so the books and periodicals are updated law books that we buy, including different training books and materials, professional development. But a lot of it is state mandated in service, and we need we upgrade our law books every year because the case law continuously changing.
And the equipment, what type of equipment do you buy with only $750?
Replacing office, like if an officer breaks a piece of gear on their person, or if they wind up having something that needs to be replaced, that's where that would come.
Sorry. I apologize. My phone. Try and turn it off.
Yeah.
Any other questions on the police before we move on?
Our expenses were increased 1%. this year.
Looks like they went down. I'm not sure. This line here?
Because they moved a few expenses.
Oh, we moved IT, these things to IT.
Yeah.
I see. Okay. Anything else on this? We're gonna go to crossing, the budget continues. Police budget is for crossing guards.
I have a question, I just know for the chief. Why the police department is paying for the cross guard instead of the school department?
That's the way it's always been, huh? I don't know.
No, because that's related to schools, why?
Or traffic safety.
Protect
Yeah.
safety? Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't be, it's not
Yes, sir.
pertinent to this. So I'd rather see them under schools, especially with the social emotional learning trainings and being more a part of the school conduct policy, what's going on in the schools. I mean, if you want to know what's going on in our schools, just ask the crossing guards. I mean, they know. They know. Those kids are well behaved. Yeah, but I do. Sorry to be joking around. I mean, for me, I think that I understand safety training, but where we are with services for kids, I mean, we want to put, from the moment they start thinking about schools till the end. So we'd have to talk about that. If also these departments and how they come up are dictated too by the state. I remember building operations, we were going to pull into DPW, and that wasn't allowed by the state, even though it didn't make specific sense. So we can certainly look at that.
And the sheriff is not paying for lockup, that's why this budget's zeroed out?
Correct.
So everybody knows that we used to have to pay a certain amount to the sheriff to, we keep people at our own station for a little bit, but then if they're overnight, or if they're there for a couple of days, they have to go to
The regional lockup.
Animal inspection, animal control. It's zero, it's level funded.
Yes.
And we only have one animal, what do we call it?
We have an animal inspector that goes to farms and inspects. So that budget's under here, but that individual actually works for the health department. And they do all the inspections on farms. And then the other is the ACO, Animal Control Officer, that we contract with Westwood ACO.
Any questions on these budgets, anybody? Okay, dispatch. For the record, introduce yourselves down there.
Good evening, I'm Brenda, dispatch supervisor.
Do you want to say anything about your narrative here, Debbie?
Like Chief Alberti said, our calls per volume 2,500 up to date. Increase of calls. We're getting very, very busy with calls and handling the desk. I've been working the desk a lot to help out.
This is very interesting here, what we have to go through just to be a DP dispatch.
Yeah,
The training is pretty intense.
yes.
Or you're on the phone with a panicked citizen.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. This is the budget. I'm assuming these increase, this is a significant increase. Is this, did we get more people, or is this just step increases, et cetera?
Both.
We did add a full-time regular or a part-time regular?
Full-time regular. We requested for dispatch because they are so busy, and it's really getting to the point where they need to have 2 people at the desk. Departments our size have 3, sometimes more than that. But if one person's on the phone with a 911 call or giving EMD over the 911 call and the other 911 goes off, it'll either get pushed to Hadley, who's our backup, or state police sometimes will wind up getting it, but still it's people in our community that are calling us for them. So we requested the mayor's office for an additional dispatcher, full-time dispatcher. So we can, for the most part, run 2 dispatchers on almost every shift.
Is it 3 8-hour shifts?
Yes.
So,
Yeah, they work 7 to 3, 3 to 11, 11 to 7.
okay. And now when someone calls 911 in this area, does it go right to Easthampton? Because I remember we had a problem
Yeah.
where it went to the state police or someplace.
Yeah,
And that delayed the call.
Yes.
Yeah, they all come here now.
That's good.
And I think Brenda, speak to your grant too a little bit.
Yes, so every year, it's not guaranteed, but I've been getting approximately $62,000 in one of my state 911 grants. And I use that mostly every year to cover salary, whether it's overtime, covered for training, and then that's $62,000. And then I also get additional training grant, which is approximately $6,000, and that covers the mandatory 16 hours that's required by the state for each dispatcher, including myself, to have 16 hours a year, every year of training, and then it'll cover the salary of myself or the other dispatchers to be working, or to go to the training. and to cover the desk when that dispatcher has to attend the training.
Okay. I just noticed this is interesting, because we always worried about overtime. In 2020, we had $36,000 in overtime, but then it went down, and I assume because we hired somebody.
We
Rather
hired
than pay overtime, we hire part-time.
We hired a part-time dispatcher.
Okay, that's
So
an
that
example.
helped out.
When did that happen?
2021.
Yeah, 2021.
That's good. Rather pay people than overtime. That's just me. Are you unionized? I forget.
No,
You're not.
not yet.
So, are they all pay plan?
Yes.
They're all pay plan.
They soon will, though we've recognized voluntarily their efforts to unionize and have some meetings coming up.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay. And there's not a lot of expenses here. Anybody have any other questions of dispatch, Tom?
This is a dumb one, but just for the minutes, could you spell your last name?
That's not a dumb question.
ERRIEN. ERRIEN.
Okay.
And it's Shoup, SHOUP, hyphenated.
SHOUP. Okay, great.
Can I ask a question? You may have mentioned this, Chief already, so I apologize. So with the calls that are coming in, are they like medical related, or are they like?
Everything,
Oh, yeah.
medical, police, from a barking dog to giving somebody CPR instructions over the phone.
Mhm.
Very of all different kind of calls.
Mhm.
I do have one.
Yes. I was about to ask.
It's related to the same thing that you were talking about. So that's the reason I asked when you guys hire it. Look at the budget of actual today, it's over 13,000. So that was a few months ago. Probably that will be higher now. And we're budgeting $10,000 again. It's because you're expecting that we're gonna be in that range 10,000, or we are underfunding that line because we don't know what's gonna happen with overtime. I don't know if you understand my question.
I'm sorry.
I do.
Tom.
I got you. I got you.
Okay.
You want to say something?
No, I probably do.
Probably because of my grant.
Exactly, because I was just gonna say, she can pay overtime from the grant.
Okay,
So,
so that way we're gonna keep paying 10,000.
right,
Because by now, we're paying more than 13,000 in overtime.
right.
Yes,
And we budgeted 10,000 last
Right.
year.
yes.
So she augments it with the grant, and certainly with the additional hire, it'll keep the overtime down.
If I can make a comment.
No. Go ahead.
Wow.
I missed you. Also, just across the departments that have the overtime line item, I prefer to under budget, because I think it's more transparent to have the departments come. And that's a little bit of this, but there's this unique grant as well. And that was also a big change we saw in police and fire, where we put full incentive because we are obligated for that, and we basically know the amount rather than waiting for the second part of the year. So similar situation, but different in that dispatch has a 911 grant that will help with that.
So just for my understanding and the public's understanding, the mayor just said was it's more transparent in the overtime area to have the police or fire or anybody who gets overtime come back to you for new overtime, so there can be a new discussion if
Right.
a supplemental's needed. I like that kind of policy.
Yeah.
It also makes sure that we don't stick money in an overtime area when we get lucky, we
Yeah.
don't need it.
Yeah.
Just want to be sure.
No, I'm not questioning the question, don't worry. Anything else on dispatch? No? Anything else for police? So we finished public safety. Very good. You are allowed to leave if you
Thank
want
you.
to,
Thank you,
although we
thank you.
would miss you very much.
Right, unless you want to hang on.
What is next? I forget. What's on the agenda next?
I believe revenue.
I'm going to jump to the end for revenue. Is it general government?
General
Let's do
government.
general government. I got a lot of people waiting.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks, Lon.
What does the city council do? Yell at each other. Besides,
Oh,
no.
whoa, wow.
I'm having.
That came
That
from
hurt.
the-
I'm not gonna yell at you for that, but.
Yes. City council.
So, we did increase the clerical area to 5,000, so we're gonna need a supplemental here to finish that, correct? President Gomez? You see what I'm looking at?
No, let me change this. What? Yeah. The 30
Yeah.
did you want?
Wait, I don't see the 5,000.
No, it's
That's
not
what he
there.
said.
Oh, no, it's
Some
not.
ordinance.
We're looking at stipends and salary and how we process those. And also in this particular case, we could not find an adopted job description for this because it doesn't necessarily need to be the city clerk. That's happened, where we are now, which makes a ton of sense. I mean, there's no, no lack of confidence at all. But what is a stipend? What's not a stipend? What gets taken out? What doesn't? It's pretty inconsistent across the city, and there are other positions like this that add on to jobs that some are salary and some are stipend. So we're working with the Collins Center and the Department of Local Services to get that straightened out. The charter is really very, very vague on it. So we're working on labor law and whatnot. The state has been very helpful, but I don't have an outcome of that yet. I'm just given what type of year it is, like time of year it is. I would not expect an answer until late summer.
And I do request to the city solicitor his opinion about we increased the stipend to 5,000 and the mayor reduced it to 40 on the budget. I make a question to the city solicitor if that was allowed. I'm still waiting for the answer. He didn't answer me yet. But as soon as I got it, I will share it with everybody.
Because it is an ordinance, that's...
Yeah, that's why I asked.
Yeah.
Okay, thought I'd bring it up, because I know I'd be asked. Otherwise, this is all pretty much funding required. I'm a little concerned, but I guess legal advertising is something we just have to, we're just gonna have to deal with it. It went up to 4,000 this year, which is pretty good. So, because we're an active council and we do a lot of public hearings.
And we had the line of training and education for the council.
Oh yeah, we did. $900.
And I hope the council used.
We actually put a line in new charter changes on how that would, didn't we, Tom? I think how that would be approached by the counselor to the president.
Either in the charter or in the rules.
No, the rules.
Is it the rules?
Yeah, it's not in the charter.
We did it someplace. City attorney. Oh, is this just the mayor's office total? Let me go back down a little bit here. Mayor's office, do you want to say anything before we go into the dollars?
I think that the narrative lays out what we've been focusing on. We've put, another is to get more stuff up on the website faster as far as press releases or programs using the text. We have a lot to go. And IT was a great step forward, really helps the whole team here at City Hall. And grants keep coming in. We just got another one. So for safe streets. So to help us a little bit with the right up here on Payson and the Manhan Trail crossing to slow folks down a little bit, and pursuing more for Hoyoke Street and whatnot, so.
Excellent. And I hope, Tom, to see the municipal light plant, city fiber happen before I depart this earth. It's an
Same.
exciting thing. No,
Yeah.
well, you're a lot younger than me, so it's better.
You're only 45.
Oh, yeah, I love you. Yeah. So we have salaries. What is this salary? I'm not sure which budget I'm looking at here.
That's mayor's budget.
Okay. It's up to 83. Remember, we staggered that a couple of years ago. Connie, I don't think you were on the council when we approved. You know how we're talking about increases now? When we approved the mayor's increase, we just had to stagger it over the 4 years. So it's not a complete increase in one. So that's why this change is there. The clerical salary is going down. Is that Lindsay? I highlighted that just to ask the question, Mayor.
So we had in my office, it's myself and Lindsay, and we had another like 24-hour
Position?
yeah, and Zoe shifted to building.
Oh, right.
Right, so we're not replacing the FTEs in the mayor's account.
And
in the
that
mayor's
money
office.
probably floated down to the building department, in a sense.
Yeah, I mean,
They had a clerical position.
Yeah, they had-
So we didn't have to do anything.
Yeah.
But there was another $6,000 which was appropriated during the fiscal year.
Okay?
and then the second part, the expenses, total purchase of services, pretty much the same. We added a little bit for in-state travel because we're having in-person meetings. The dues and membership is pretty much exclusively the Massachusetts Municipal Association for the whole city. So that goes
I was
up.
kind of wondering who paid that. Okay. that
Yeah.
makes sense.
So that's our general, that's a really valuable membership to be a part of that, and every department really benefits from it. Yeah, that's,
So city attorney, this is interesting to me. I thought we did an increase already this year. I thought the adjusted budget would be higher because I thought we did a supplemental because you needed it, or was that paid out of a different fund?
that was we asked for extra money very specifically for Union Street and legal fees,
Right.
and the way it was placed in. So I just got the expense reports today for, I think we're at $105,000 spent so far. I mean, this was from January, but
But
we're,
this isn't, but is that being paid for out of the, not out of the general fund, or it is being paid for?
it's being paid out of
Yeah.
This
the city,
account.
yeah.
So it's gonna be up to 150 grand or something, or the actual for 2021, 2022?
No, it'll be about 105. I mean, there's a
105.
month left. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm sorry. I should say like 150. And Lindsay is extremely tight with the lawyers, the firms. If they do not get us their invoices by the end of the year, we do not pay it.
Really? You can do that?
Yeah, we do. I mean,
I'm afraid to call them for 10 minutes because that probably cost $2,000 or something.
we have some really expensive letters from this year. I would say that.
But why not increase this? Is this your idea of let's wait and see if we need it?
Yeah, let's wait to see what we need it. We're getting better and better with the big grants and carving out legal fees from the grants. So, you know, we had some
okay.
stuff come up on Union Street that we had a little money and for legal in the grant, so we expend that. We're also making stronger connections with DLS, using external auditor around some city legal stuff. So I think that looking
Okay.
down the line, like, I think that maybe in 2025, I mean, we'll watch how we do here, but there might be a reason to contract for city council attorney to see with all the different things that we do, it might just be more cost effective. You know, so right now we're paying by hours, but there are ways that municipalities can, you know, contract.
Retainer kind of things?
Yeah, it's not called the retainer anymore, but it's like, you know, for $60,000 you get this. But we're watching it. I mean, there's still no need to bring on an attorney, like a city actual on staff. I mean, we have good relationships with a labor firm and then a general practice
Do
firm.
cities our size, there's not many cities our size, most cities are larger, they have their own attorney in-house.
Some of them do. I think it has more to do with the wealth of the community and what they want to see in their budget than a community this size needs. I mean, what's going on in Easthampton now with just development, but also cleaning up a lot of stuff like the charter and, you know, a couple of land issues and whatnot. Bulks us, you know, really kind of pushes that number up. But it continues to be mostly one-off things. It's not like consistently every June we need a legal review on X, Y, or Z. It's we've got a grant or there's a disputed boundary with some land.
So licensing, is that Lindsay?
Mm-hmm.
Lindsay, you're on the call, you want to talk about this? Is she there?
Hi, I am. So this year there was one major change for licensing, and it's that we started permitting outdoor live entertainment applications for anyone having outdoor live entertainment on public premises, and that's to help with mitigation of noise complaints that we've received. Each year we have a meeting that is somewhere in Massachusetts, which we have not had in the last 2 years due to COVID. So I put back in-state travel, which we haven't had for the last 2 years. I have an annual membership with the Municipal Licensing Corporation, and they are reinstating fees for the upcoming year. And then I added back in education and training, which I took out for the last 2 years because of COVID. Again, we weren't holding many meetings, trainings, or going anywhere during that time. It's a pretty small budget.
I was going to say, $100 isn't going to get you very far.
Licensing paperwork and stuff goes through procurement.
Okay. Anybody have any questions of Lindsay on licensing? I like them.
No, but I have a question to the mayor.
Okay.
Yes.
About her budget.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, I never asked you.
It is
You should
about...
have yelled at me.
No, because...
No
I
yelling.
cannot now.
Anyway,
The $57,000 for the clerical salary position, that will be enough money to pay for the position? Or you gonna?
No, we're going to come back. I mean, the position with the way the budget, I mean, the hope was to pass the budget in June, and I didn't feel sure we would have somebody in that place. So what you're seeing is the less the 22-hour position, but at the existing salary. I'm sorry, I should have said that, yeah.
And you coming back to the
And I will come back.
for an
Yep.
application too?
Yep.
And that amount of money, what is do you know the number? Or no?
the range you're advertising.
No, I don't. Maybe,
I can get back to you.
yeah.
Or what?
I was going to say 12,
Around it up.
10 or 12.
Okay.
Can I go back to the city council? I just had a question about that.
Okay.
And I missed it, so I apologize. I didn't quite understand. So we asked to raise the thing to 5,000, and you are saying no. Is that my understanding, or?
Yeah, I'm saying no. And not just because the person or the position doesn't necessitate 5,000, but it's a separate position than city clerk, although we've been fortunate to have our city clerk serve in that function for a while. There's no job description, it's not in pay plan, and there's a question if it really is a salary or a stipend. So until that's clarified, we're gonna keep it as it is, and both myself and Omar I've been working with the state and the Collins Center, and Omar's been having conversations with the legal attorney. Right now, we have found a couple of cases that somewhat address it. The charter on the issue is really vague. So like we refer to a lot of different things as stipends, but the charter more refers to those things as salaries. And labor law in general would look at the face of this permanent city clerk as a stipend, which means it's a 1099 and we wouldn't take retirement out or anything, health insurance. So we're trying to figure that out. I expect to get clarification by late summer and then pass on a documented information to Omar to clarify that in an ordinance of what these, and there are a lot of stipends. I mean, there are stipends in school, there are other stipends in the city. Also, how do we create them? So if there's like COVID-related small jobs or something, you know, we're going to bring somebody on to write a highway infrastructure big grant. So maybe there's a stipend for that person for $2,000 or like Jamie or something. But like, what are the, if it's a stipend, it's not clear. You have to go to council for a position. And I just see that as a loophole that needs to be tightened. So we're waiting for, and yeah, what I thought would be a relatively easy thing to define is not.
Does that help, Connie?
Thank you.
Omar, do you need anything else on the, I'm gonna move on from licensing to whatever is next. Auditor. Is she here?
No, Nicole, the mayor.
Wait, auditor or assessor?
No, the assessor. No, the auditor is.
No, the
What's-
auditor is not.
I'm looking
I think
here,
he was here.
licensing,
Yeah.
auditor.
Yeah,
I think
auditor's
she's here.
sitting next to you, Dan.
Yeah.
Hello. She had it right.
I tried to hide.
I noticed.
I have a question regarding the fact that we, every year, and it's under your budget, so I'll just jump to it and then you can talk.
Yep.
Professional services. Where do we pay for Scanlon's audit? Right here?
The last two lines, financial audit and audit gas B68.
Okay. Does that audit the entire budget and management of the city,
Yes, including schools.
including schools?
Yes.
Okay.
Schools and single audit, which is for federal grants. A big portion of the federal grant or single audit belongs to school department.
And that was my next question. So all this federal money we've been getting, COVID money, school ESSER,
Yep.
American Rescue Act money, all that is going to be audited by Scanlon using this.
Everything
Line.
except ARPA, which is American Rescue. He gave me estimate for up to $4,000, but it's gonna come down to depending how many activities take place within that grant. So it could be, if you have whole range of activities, then accordingly we'll get charged. But as per the ARPA regulation, we can pay that expense out of ARPA. So with mayor's direction, it is not included in this budget.
So when an audit is done like that,
Yeah.
the residents, the citizens can see what was spent, where and when. Is that how the audit is presented? Or is it?
No, auditors give our financial reports and they give management letter. Management letter usually goes to the city council. And the full audit, which is more than 100 pages, with the financials can be available on public
If
request.
people wanted to see, where did that money go to? They
Yes.
can find it someplace.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm asking.
Yes.
Also, by the federal regulations, we will soon be posting our CARES spreadsheet of how we use CARES and also how we've spent a little bit of the ARPA money on smaller projects, but also a lot of IT. So that's going onto the website. The web page, yeah, I'm just trying to make it a little more understandable and not just a big spreadsheet like it is now, but I
would
need to get
add-
up there.
I know you're probably already doing this because you care about transparency, but everybody asks me, what's CARES Act, what's ARPA, what's this and what's that? So as you do this, any kind of language that's easier to read. What is the CARES Act?
Yeah.
And where did we get
That's
it?
good.
When did we get it?
Mm-hmm.
And how can it be spent? What are the restrictions? Because that's
Yeah.
important, because people ask me, why can't they use that money for this? And I'll say, I don't know. It's probably restricted, the federal government or the state. So.
Yeah, there are some
I'm just asking that whenever that's out there, number one, is it going to be available? Number two, when it is, how did it get there? And not just why we spent it, but we're not allowed to spend it on whatever.
Right, and the ARPA money has, like, after we did our ARPA chart and lined everything up with the priorities of projects across the city, that the federal government, ultimately good, got rid of a lot of subcategories and said we could just declare it revenue loss and then general government services, which just, that was a lot of work on the spreadsheet and whatnot, but
And I do want to add, ARPA grant there is no simple answer. The summary, there is no simple answer, yes or no, because the summary from the federal is 41 pages long.
The summary of what you can spend it on, say?
Yes, summary. The detail, I even don't know how many pages are there. but-
we hired a consultant to do the ARPA plan. That's what he focused on. He was
And they're allowed to be paid out of ARPA.
Yes.
just like the federal audit. We'll put ARPA money aside to pay for the one-time audit.
Good. So this jump in salary for, this is you, right, Hadel? Is this step
Yes.
increase plus
Yes.
3%?
So, no, it is salary.
Not that you don't deserve it, please.
Did you get a bachelor's degree?
No, so, what did you say?
I said, did you get a bachelor's?
I have master's
I know.
degree, and I have
was a
state,
joke.
I know, and I have a state audit license, and that was one of the things where I get a one-time step increase because now I'm certified by this by the
Oh, okay.
Mass Municipal Audit and Accountant Association, and because of the workload due to all these additional grants, I've been awarded now 40 hours instead of 35 hours.
Oh, okay.
So that's where the money and the step increase is coming from.
Step increases
and
come
then
because-
3%, yes, and the normal 3%, which everybody got across the board.
So the one incentive was to get that Massachusetts license, and that jumped you a step too.
Oh, one step, yes, yes.
Well, good. Very good. Anybody
And-
else have any?
Yes, so the assistant auditor, I asked for one step increase for her too, because now I'm asking her to go to the audit school and get herself educated so she can help with that
That's
round.
this one.
The
right?
second line, yes. So that's 3% and a step increase for her, but there is no increase in hours.
Okay. Anybody? Omar? Tom? Connie? On the auditor's budget?
I want to say that the KB certificate money they will do.
Oh,
Yes.
I'll second and third that. I'll even fourth it.
I'll fifth that.
Thank God you got that bachelor's degree, I'll tell you.
Oh, I have masters too.
That's great.
We're gonna run that into the ground, you know.
Yeah.
The
Just don't get a
assessor.
doctorate because you won't get anything.
Yeah, stop now. So, we don't have an assessor, do we?
Nicole is gonna, the mayor talk about it.
Okay, Mayor.
Yep. So this, just first got onto that. Not a lot of changes here as far as what we're doing up on top. We're looking at a data collector position, but for the meantime, right now, we have made a contract for the end of this fiscal year, actually to September. We have a contract with Bishops and Associates that are filling in as the assessor, getting it done. We work with them already. They were very confident $6,000 contract would do what we need to get through year end and then go into the fall.
We're doing a search right now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cities and towns that are looking for
Yeah.
the same position.
And this salary you see, the principal assessor, full-time, that's a stretch that was a big stretch for us. I don't know what the grade and step was, but we need to do it to get somebody. Christine has stepped up in the assessor's office a bunch, and we put her up to office manager as well as giving her more hours in this period. So she's, treated fairly. She's a great resource who has no interest in becoming the assessor. I keep hoping she changes her mind. What we did on education and training, and this happened in a couple of other departments, where we added training in assessor school and whatnot, to just do more professional development. A lot of folks haven't been to the state trainings or their trade association trainings in a very long time. So we put, especially in the admin departments, I put in the opportunity for them to go to the statewide conferences, which is extremely, I would say extremely important. Tech services, we're looking at software, and commercial assessing. Books and periodicals are those attached to just assessing in general. A couple of, that, and now you just moved it on me.
Can you see it better now?
Dues and membership.
Dues and membership. Again, we want to make sure that all of our employees belong to professional associations and build that network contract, and that goes hand in hand with the education and training.
So, Connie, this is a city council appointment? Omar, where are we with the search? Can you give us an update?
We are really looking, we are having a conversation with the people in different communities to see if we can find the right candidates. A month ago, we thought that we have one, but then at the end, she decided not to apply for the position.
Do you have a search committee?
No, but we have people in the city working really hard to find the right person for that position.
Okay.
Yeah, Emily has been posting it and pushing it out to different communities, but also different websites to see if we get any takers, and they're very difficult to find.
Yeah, we posted with MMA, we've gone to Auditors Association, Indeed, obviously a website, but we're searching far and wide. Like you had said earlier, a lot of communities are searching for assessors. There aren't many out there, unfortunately.
Okay. I can tell you that in the history I've been on the council, this has been a position that's been difficult.
We just need for the housing market to collapse, then some realtors will, transition over.
There we go.
Okay.
I'm not sure I like that idea, but
I know that was a joke, but
It's gonna happen.
it is going to happen.
all right, well, hope we get lucky there. Treasurer. Welcome to, where'd she go? You were sitting there. Welcome to the job. Jess, do you have any insight into, I'm sure there's things you would change after you've been here a while, but given all of this, it must be nerve-wracking, because not only do you have to manage our funds, you have to manage all of this. And do we hire, I guess we're hiring people to help, right?
I came from Chickpea, so it's smaller amounts of money here. And I didn't actually do this budget,
Yeah, it was
but,
good.
if you have any questions, I'm sure I can try and answer them.
Well, I know Chicopee has more money, but like 2.1 million
I have one.
dollars is still a lot of money to the residents of Easthampton. So.
It is.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Why the assistant salary is going down?
She's new.
Oh, she's good.
We're talking about this figure
Everybody's
here.
I was gonna say, everybody is new in
Yeah,
treasury. Yep.
So it's entry
But that
level.
doesn't
It's
mean
entry
the
level
salary is less
salary.
because the salary for her position is higher, so that's why I'm asking.
So her salary is higher because she's also hired at 80 hour, 40 hours a
40
week.
hours, okay.
Yes, and assistant, the previous one
Thank you.
was on the top of the scale, and we hired Kim somewhere at 5 or 6.
Down the lower, she
Yes.
didn't have a lot of experience
Okay.
in this position.
So it's a lower step. Lower.
Yeah.
That's this figure here,
So-
guys. For your record. I have no other questions. Welcome.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoy the job. Anything, Tom, Connie? Okay. Oh, I have a question because it's coming up soon. We have a bond council that helps with bonding, like with the schools. Is that paid for out of professional services, or is that paid for
It can
out of
be,
the
but
bond that is
it's
being,
usually paid out of the bond.
out of the bond? So this big bond for the schools, we pay that consulting, okay, part of the expense. Okay. Moving on, central purchasing, this is under Michael, right? I have nothing on this, it's just that we used to have, I guess Connie or Tom, you might remember this, purchasing used to be all over the place with a lot of departments, and we centralized it. Correct? So if somebody
Yes.
needs paper, they go to our purchasing agent to get it.
And it's more efficient purchasing. We're able to check it more, the price, points, we can see what we need, and,
You can see all the different departments here.
right, and see, instead of buying paper one day and then 2 days later, we're buying it in bulk. And, a lot of this, I would hope, the supplies too, there's a lot of duplication. So, we can just buy a, bulk across.
And then he can actually make sure that if it goes over a certain amount, that it follows the 30B purchasing laws.
30B, 32B is healthcare, isn't
30,
it?
yeah.
Good. Any questions from any counselors? Technology? Are you on the call, Corinne?
Yeah, she's
Want to say anything about your wonderful work? How much we love you?
Hello, here I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, you've set up the room very nicely.
Testing the technology. So I think you're going to be surprised by the budget, but in reality, it's the creation of a new department. So a little bit of the history. The school and the city used to have the same budget, and they were divided. And when they were divided, some things fell in the wrong place because it was very difficult to make the division in the budget. And in addition to that, we had some funds coming from CARES and from FEMA, where it was hard to account for the real cost of running an IT department. And you remember that I came for a supplemental appropriation. We also came to ask to support part of the grant for the police software. Yeah, technology is expensive.
So the reason this big jump is a lot of work was brought back into the IT department, and we created a new department. You were paid previously. Is this your salary right now?
Yes.
Okay. Very deserved, I might say so. It is a major increase, but IT is also, like, look here, we had no software yearly maintenance, now we are. And what's important to me is the security of our software and the security of our city with regard to how you hear about hacking that costs cities millions of dollars. So to me, this is money well spent. Make sure that we're safe.
I think it's also worth mentioning that virtually every department we've looked at right now has seen some of their expenses go down because they got moved
to
here.
IT, yes.
So a lot of this is just like in terms of the top line number, it's whatever, but it's just we're concentrating this instead of everyone having their own little fiefdom of IT, which I think makes a lot of sense.
And the, well, also too, I mean, when you have IT in every department, you know, it becomes just something you pick or choose. So if you need, you know, if you're more accustomed to printing and paper, you're like, oh, paper's cheaper than XY software. So this has been helpful, having Karin on board and building out a more robust budget, because we're really encouraging people very, very strongly to move to software products that are more efficient but also safer.
Can I ask, Corinne, why this is zeroed out, software
That's my
license?
question.
I mean, we do need licenses, right? You see what I'm looking
What
at?
was this?
The software licenses,
5139, I think that is. You see my cursor going across?
Yes, yes.
Why is that zeroed out? Are we putting that someplace else?
So instead of, Karin, so instead of licenses, there's subscriptions now.
Oh, really?
And also,
We moved it up,
Yeah,
right?
we
That's
moved it up.
right, we moved it.
Oh, so that's what yearly maintenance is.
yeah.
54.
So,
Oh, this went to here.
so we have subscriptions, like or Google Workspace, and then the Microsoft licenses that we still have to have, which are dwindling the number. You can buy a lifetime one, like and use it, you know, for Hadel and Jen really like Excel. I mean, and it's
they like Excel.
I love Excel.
yeah.
Because state likes it, state needs their.
I was just gonna say, and really the state loves it. Like trying to upload a Google sheet at any given time with the state is, you know, you're rolling the dice. Yeah, so I mean, this is, I mean, I don't want to take up too much time talking about technology, but this is a radical shift of what we do for cybersecurity, what we do for with internet technologies. And I would also just kind of point out here, next year's budget might increase significantly as well. I mean, we got what do we get? A grant for 125,000, Karin?
Yes.
Yeah, that went against police software, the new police software, but then we had to do all of this infrastructure work. Then, well, we got another 250 for fiber, to switch to fiber. And then we used a lot of ARPA money in the beginning so we could take advantage of just getting it over. We had some really close calls with cybersecurity. So when you see this grand total at the end, you really, in your mind, double it. But the part that I'm not showing is grants and ARPA.
Yeah, and Council Rest, I apologize. I think the jump here on the line is Halo being detailed on how we call things. Because this is true. Now we pay, unfortunately, we have to pay maintenance. So for our backups, now we not only have an appliance, a hardware where we keep our backups that also need to be upgraded every 3 to 5 years, but we also pay for cloud backups, and that's a subscription model. So everything is changing to the yearly maintenance and support.
Okay, so I understand. Thank you.
This is great.
Anything else on IT from anybody? Councilor Gomez.
Again. Hola, Karen. I do have a question about the equipment. It's $33,000, $298 with 50 cents. What we gonna get with that money?
We put all of our equipment, all of our hardware on a 5-year cycle. And that's an estimate of saying we can replace a workstation for $500. And we know that is impossible really when most of us now need 2 monitors to work. But that was our approach to start thinking about a 5-year cycle where we are going to replace a fifth of our equipment. Some of our computers may live longer than 5 years. Some of our monitors may be longer and we're only replacing or adding more memory. I'm a little bit concerned about Windows 11 because many of our computers will need a new processor and more memory, and that will require a little bit more than $500 per workstation. But I'm also counting on maybe getting some grant support to make that big leap forward.
Thank you. And the other question is the $31,000 for telephones, radios, and others. What is that? Is just to pay the services, or that include to buy new telephones or any type of communications?
Yes, if I understand the question, all of the phone services are being now concentrated under one budget, so we understand what we're paying and for what services. Many of these lines have been, are Verizon, AT&T. Many of these lines have been contracted many, many years ago, and we don't even know if they are in use or if we're paying more for the services than for how they are being used. So the idea was to let's concentrate all of the telephone lines, and we are working actually with auditing companies that are helping us assess how much we're paying. And sometimes we're finding that, yes, we got a good deal and Verizon doesn't sell those accounts anymore, but sometimes we say, no, we don't need to pay international rate that came as a standard before. We can cut a few cents here. So that's what's happening. Everything is getting concentrated.
So what's the difference between radios, telephones, other communications, and then you go down a couple lines and there's telephone?
That's a good question.
It's equipment versus services.
What is it?
It's equipment versus services. So radio for a police department or fire department, they use that radio, but that's 5243 line versus telephone is the service from the company.
And the telephone.
And in this,
Go ahead, Karen.
in this one, in the telephone 5341, we included the new internet, the new gigabyte of fiber that the city is getting for its own consumption. So that's all communications for the city has been incorporated into that telephone.
Could that include the cell phone from different offices too, like the mayor's office, the auditor's office, and the other office?
Yes. So I think the 31,000 only includes the new addition of police, dispatch, and fire.
Yep.
Okay. And all that money used to be in their accounts and it got transferred over to this account. Anything else for Karen? Anybody? Moving on. This is an example of all of that.
Just notes to show,
Notes.
just to show how many stuff were to move from other.
Oh, this is
budget
where it was moved from?
From, yes. So it's
Okay.
PD, fire, engineering dispatch, copier, council on aging, copier contract.
Okay, got it. Collector. Hi.
Hi.
Obviously, the kind of need our bills collected. Anything you want to say to this? The salary is up based on step increases of 3%. I didn't see anything in here that I questioned at all.
The salaries also, Lori and I are going to 36 hours instead of 34 a week.
Okay. All right.
So the reason we did that is so they can cross-train each other, because Lori does water collection and Carol is expert in text collection. So by giving those 4 hours to both of them, it gives flexibility to them to come on one of the Fridays and train each other, so they can fill in for each other.
And a few years ago, we moved water, Connie, you wouldn't know this, we moved water collection from the DPW into the collector's office.
Right.
Which is why we have an assistant collector, right?
Yes.
I don't remember whether you had one before, but that's one of the reasons.
Yeah.
We actually moved that whole position over, didn't we?
Yes.
Okay. That was under you, right? Before you did that.
So what?
Move the position that was in the DPW that did water bill collection over to Texas.
Like, and created, I mean, it wasn't my administration that completely moved it over, but working with Carolyn, looking at the volume going through that office, definitely an assistant collector was merited, and candidly, we had a great clerk in there making clerk money who was really doing the job of an assistant collector.
Right.
But this has also been a part of, especially as Hadel mentioned, the increase in volume, increase in hours, cross-training just would happen when it could happen, and it was very inconsistent. So the extra hours make it permanent, like a regular schedule when they're not interrupted, that sort of thing. And yeah, and we bumped. We made sure we bumped like the dues and membership, so that could be added. Professional services, we went down. Postage. Oh yeah, postage and office supplies are actually in this office because of the specificity in collection of those bills. It's kind of a one-off. We did put in in-state travel, and we'll put in a little bit of money for the education and training. So both the collector and the assistant collector can go to trainings and travel to and from. We have some professional development money, and that was a donation gift from Williston for pay plan professional development that will augment in this department. So they can, not only can Lori go to school, but Carol can attend her professional conferences.
Great. Any questions, President Gomez, Tom, Connie? Okay. Sorry to keep you waiting for such a brief moment there.
No problem.
Human resources, do we really need that?
I don't know, like you said, everyone's new, so.
So your pay went up because of step and 3%?
Yes, I also want to increase my clerk to 34 hours. Right now she's currently at 24.
So that's this big jump right here?
Yes.
Okay.
And then otherwise, everything else is pretty status quo. The only thing is with the actuarial study, that's done every other year, so we just put a $100 placeholder there because we'll need to pay that $2,000 next year for next fiscal year.
So we don't do anything for the schools, correct?
The OPEB is for both school and city, which is the actuarial study. And then we do, HR does a lot for the
schools, especially with regard to insurances and
Absolutely, we do all
liability.
their insurance, when their insurance actually takes up a portion, like the majority of the bills. Also, we do all their onboarding and offboarding for employees. The only part we really don't get involved in is the actual hiring of employees. So they do the interview process and taking applications in, we do everything else from there.
Yes. A lot of school-related stuff is being done by city departments. Any questions of Emily or anybody? You do a great job, and I have to compliment you because you started off as an assistant and you've grown into the job well. So
Thank you, I appreciate
from
that.
my point of view,
I hope now that COVID is dying down a little bit to do a lot more, so.
well, I hope so, but you should see the trouble I'm going with the show I'm doing. Everybody's got COVID. We have understudies doing everything. Anyway, I'm moving on unless there's any questions for her. Barbara, are you on the call?
I am.
How are you, Barbara?
I'm good. How are you, Dan?
Anything you want to say? I see there's an increases here in salary, assistant steps and 3%, etc.
We're both at max, so
okay.
That's all that is. Everything else, there's really nothing special in my budget this year. Nothing unusual for a clerk, that is.
Anybody have any questions of Barbara for her budget? Her normal clerk budget. We also have the elections she deals with, which is coming up. Omar, anything? No? Moving on to elections. We do have a pretty big election coming up.
Well, one thing I have to explain about elections is, the election budget goes up and down every year. And the thing about this year is that I have no clue what's going to happen come September. We still don't know if we're doing by mail ballots. We still don't know if we're doing early voting for the primary. I would love to say that as of Wednesday afternoon, I might learn more, but the legislature hasn't done anything. So we still don't know. So I kind of budgeted based on 2020. It may end up being more than I need, but I don't have any idea. So, that's the big jump there. The election budget always goes up and down depending on elections.
So this is basically, you're saying, comparing it to 2020, and costs like mail-in ballots and everything else is bumping that up.
One thing you have to remember from 2020, though, is that we had other sources of funding. I had a grant that I used for some of my early voting costs that I won't have this year. So
that was
you're
COVID.
going to be like,
we had COVID.
Why is it even more? The minimum wage has gone up, and I don't have that grant funding that was available for that year, for the 2020 election.
Because, as everybody recalls, that we were in the middle of COVID then.
Yeah.
And we got grant funding to help with.
Yeah, I just wish the legislature would tell us what's going on, but they haven't. So.
Join the club. Anything on this, councilors?
I think it's a sound idea to budget it like it's 2020 and then see what happens.
And if it goes back to free cash if we don't use it.
Right.
And we have one major election. We have nothing in the spring. We have the primary in September.
We have two elections in FY 2023.
A primary and the main election in November.
Correct.
Okay. All right, and you have all the software you need and everything for.
Yeah, under professional services, we do have maintenance agreements on the image cast, the big black boxes on the poll pads, and also this year on the ranked choice voting software. So I had to plan for that. And that also includes the census and the street list. We don't have to print ballots this year, so that, of course, is not in there.
Why don't you have to print ballots?
ballots because the state prints the
State's gonna do
ballots.
them for us? Oh, because it's
We-
a state
we only-
election.
Yeah, we only print them for local elections.
There you go. So that's why this figure goes down. Okay.
Yep. Oh, yeah, and for computer services for the state elections, the state programs the auto marks, which is the handicap accessible. We have to program those for local elections, but not for state. They pay for it.
Okay. Any questions? You have anything else, Barb? Thank you for waiting.
No.
Okay, moving on. Planning. Hey, Jeff, how are you? Are you still there, Jeff?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Very, very happy with your work, especially in the grant procurements your office is doing. I just have to say it's remarkable how much you do. I know you have a list of all these grants that you've gotten. It's pretty incredible. Keep up the good work, Jeff. Do you want to bring up anything specific to what you do for the public?
Sure. Just a couple of quick things. In myself included, we're a staff of 5, and so all of us in the department do a lot of work and contribute to all these projects. That's really important for me to mention. In the budget chart, I did want to address something that for some people will pop up, and if you look on social media hard enough, you find it. But under the adjusted budget for 2022, I just wanted to clarify that I did not get a raise, especially that substantial of a number. What this demonstrates is a strategy. Yeah, the line to the left, it shows the 111,146. I just wanted to be really clear with people that is
this way?
Wait, hold on, Jeff. He's trying to find this out.
Right here.
Right there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that figure here you're talking about.
Yes.
Okay.
That represents so that number represents the addition of the on the far right column, the 34,800 from cannabis. What I proposed as a strategy and worked closely with the mayor and Hadel is taking a portion of, so my position is 100% general fund, and I'm taking a portion of that general fund and moving it to the conservation agent, and using that 34,800 towards my salary to recognize that my position in particular had carried a lot of weight establishing the cannabis industry that we have, established over the past 5 years. So I've seen people talk about that number as if, my position itself got a giant raise, which it did not. This was a strategy to kind of offset some of the general funds in my position with cannabis. And the ultimate goal, which I've talked about for several years in a row, is to make the conservation agent position full-time. So Hadel and I have talked about this being a gradation of this year being the most money in cannabis, and it'll be diminishing by 33% each year for a period of 3 years. And that is for me to acknowledge that I will be seeking small increases in the planning department budget over the next 3 years to rebuild the general fund portion back up. But what I'm trying to do is be creative to get that position full-time in a time that we really are talking a lot about sustainability and green infrastructure, and as we see lots more money becoming available, we need that staff position to be out there going for the funds and managing the projects as they come forward. So that was really the big thing I wanted to mention off the top.
Okay, I wanted to mention Jamie's salary is here, and it is funded partially by the CPA. That's why this is separated out here, correct?
Correct.
And the request here is 55, and this is the 2 areas where it's funded. And you have another another position that's funded here. And
Correct.
what you just said for the public's knowledge is that you're going to slowly but surely increase your request for general fund funding of your salaries because the cannabis money is going down each year, correct? You're concerned. There's a 33% decrease, is that what you just said?
Yes, that was the idea, is that none of the cannabis money is a permanent solution, but it is really an attempt to utilize it in this temporary basis so that we can help build up the conservation agent position over the next 3 years instead of drastically all at once.
Anybody else have questions for Jeff? Omar, Tom, Connie?
The one other thing, if I could, I did, because someone mentioned it, I did want to mention that myself, the arts coordinator, and one of the assistant planners who happens to be Jamie's role, we are all at the max of our pay scale and grades. And so I do want to just acknowledge that that is something that we will, as a community, have to talk about in terms of the planning department having a majority of its staff at that max grade. And I think I just wanted to put a plug in for that. I think talking about that in the future, and titles, titles have shifted over time. And so those are things I foresee in the future. So I just wanted to kind of raise them here just so that I'm kind of on the record saying that, there are some things to discuss in terms of the planning department's stature on that grade scale. And so I think the clerk, maybe it was Barbara at the clerk's office, the planning department has 3 of 5 people are at that end of the grade. So I think I just wanted to add that, I guess.
What you're saying is their step is maxed out.
Correct.
So the only increases they'll get are those increases that are COLA increases in the future.
Correct. And I think in the long term, that's not going to be great for keeping people for longevity purposes and keeping up with, other communities who are not stuck with that barrier.
Yes. Anything else from anybody? Thank you, Jeff. Building operations is under the Department of Public Works. Energy bills, etc., trash. Is this how many?
I feel like we already discussed building
Did we do
operations
this
on the first day when
I thought we did too. Sorry, it was just
I was like,
kidding.
this looks familiar.
Right.
That's all for general government, right?
Yes. Great job, guys. We did it.
What's next is, I want to jump to the CPA and then we have the revenue, right? I want to jump to the CPA. Jamie will chime in if I make a mistake. But what's very important for the public to understand is they see a huge increase, and let me find it. Did I pass it?
We're at the bottom.
I just saw it. There's the $785,000, and everybody is wondering how did we get such a huge increase in budget. That is not a budget. That is the revenue that's increased this year, primarily because the state has given us more money than we've ever had. We're almost at 100% match, right, Jamie? If I read it right down here. But anyway.
Not quite.
Go ahead.
So the big estimate, so we are estimating more in local revenue this year than we've estimated in previous years. And there was an adjustment.
This much last year, so okay.
Right. So the 597 is what we're expecting to take in revenue this year. The 450,000 that you see to the left of that was what we had proposed in the previous year's budget. So we were off by almost $150,000 in revenue of what we expected to take in locally and what we're actually been taking in. So the 600,000 in local revenue this year is sort of an adjustment to get us back into alignment with what we're actually been seeing for the past few years. And then based off that, with the CPA revenue round 1 match, we're estimating at about 30%, which is just a guess because we really don't know
what the state's going to give us until they finalize until the FY22 year ends, and once they've determined what they have in revenue from the registry.
So, just, if I might, what to understand is the $785,000 is not a budget, it's the amount of money that we are budgeting based on revenue. But the only budgeted item is right here, CPA administrative costs. A lot of that is Jamie's salary and other costs associated with administering the CPA. Like expenses, which is small, and the salary. The rest of the funds are put into accounts because we don't budget in the CPA specific expenses. We budget a project that is presented to us, we budget it, and then it goes to the city council for approval. So we are required to put at least 10% of our expected revenue into these three lines: open space, historic preservation, and affordable housing. We have done more than that because we would have had to have put 78,000 in to be 10%, but we put 110 to make sure in case we got even more revenue. Am I correct, Jamie?
Correct, because they're currently looking at passing a supplemental appropriation of the state that would add $20 million to the state match, which would then be distributed to each of the communities. If that is approved, then that would likely get us closer another $150,000 or $200,000 in state match, which would bring us closer to about $1 million total, which is why like you said, the 10% is based off that higher probable but not certain number.
Right, and this is okay because we expect to use it, especially in affordable housing. And we do budget that first. If we have a project for affordable housing, for instance, and it costs $200,000, we take the majority of it out of this fund because that is all that fund can be used for. It can't be used for other projects. We do have a reserve fund, which is pretty high, and we've budgeted money into that here. We also have budgeted for the last 5 years, because we made a commitment of $3 million to the Old Town Hall restoration, and we've put $250,000 in there every year. We're up to $1 million there. That also, which the City Council will hear later this summer, I hope, allows us to expect to be able to pay a bond that'll transfer to paying off a loan to cover whatever we can't pay in cash for that $3 million whenever that comes up. So that's why that fund is there. So just to be clear, we didn't get a 39% increase in budget, we got a 39% increase in revenue. I think someplace in the summary there's a 39% listed. And I wanted people to understand that we are very happy, because what this means for me is when it comes time to fund affordable housing for our three schools that we're going to turn into affordable housing, the CPA will be able to afford, I expect $1 million there. We'll be able to afford it because we are getting more revenue. We can do Old Town Hall, and we can do a lot of projects that the Park and Rec Department is asking for. It's exciting to me to see the state, which originally said, we'll give you 100% of your property tax. Well, they didn't, and it's getting better, and it's exciting to me. It's not exactly exciting to see that we've raised a lot more in local taxation, because it means everybody's house assessments went up. And that's too bad in that sense, but it is 3% of that is what we get in. So that's why that's up. So anyway, does anybody have any questions if that explanation isn't too technical for everybody? Yes, Hadel.
CPA, when I do the revenue calculation, this is not raise or appropriate as for part of the general taxation purposes. This is self-supporting program we have here. Just like enterprise fund, they have their budget, but they have their revenue source. We don't have to worry about it as a general government. Same with CPA.
Yes, if you look at your tax bill, there is an assessment on it for CPA. And it goes directly into this fund. It doesn't go to the general fund and it's transferred. That's what you're referring to.
Yes.
Anybody else on CPA? I'm just a happy camper.
It's exciting.
It is.
We're excited for you.
Well, thank you.
I'm excited and I'm excited for you.
2 for 2.
All right, so going to revenue, I always put this in because we have to have a balanced budget, and it's poor Hadel's job to make sure that whatever we decide to budget, we match in revenue. And we have property taxes. We're only allowed to increase property taxes 2.5% per year. That's the old Prop 2.5, which is still there. We get state aid. State aid cherry sheet, is that separate from Chapter 70? Or is
That includes Chapter 70. That's
right.
one of the category under cherry sheet.
So my big question on all of that is, let me get this back here.
Where is revenue? Is that at the top?
But I think I jumped over it.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I saw it, I was in here this morning and I looked, there it is. So, cherry sheet money is up 18%, which is great. What I wanted to ask, I've read that the Senate and the State House, we base all of this on, right, Mayor, on the governor's budget when it comes out.
Yep.
We have to base it on something.
Right.
So now the state, and they take their time, maybe sometime this summer, they'll pass a budget, and they might give us more money in local aid and in Chapter 70.
Mm-hmm.
Can we use that right away? Say, can schools use Chapter 70 money right away?
No.
They have to wait till next year?
They have to wait till this closes to free cash on June 30th for fiscal year ending 23. So that means November of 2023, when free cash is available or certified, I would say, at that point, they have to put in appropriation to city council, and it needs to go through the whole process. With the school, they have to also put an appropriation first to this school committee, school finance, and it's gonna go to city council, city finance, and bounce back. So it's gonna be both sides.
So if they give us more money, the Chapter 70 money this year, or local aid, we
Yeah.
don't get to use it until next year.
It's a local
Next
receipt, it's
November.
the state regulated, it's a mass general law that any money coming to general fund is subject to close to free cash. You can't use unless state has specified the usage of that particular money. Otherwise, it's illegal to take money out of it, and it's an audit finding.
But because we know we're gonna get it, we can anticipate it in a sense.
No,
Oh, you know,
it's
you're gonna
still-
get it because it's budgeted, right? I mean, the state's
No,
given us.
I can't calculate, I can't just say, okay, they are talking about it, that's why I'm gonna incorporate that into my.
No, I'm talking
budget.
about when they actually pass the budget.
Even then,
Yeah.
it needs to close to free cash for that fiscal year in order to be used the following fiscal year.
Yes.
I believe that you have a master's degree in
And a certification for the State Audit
Yeah.
Association.
It's sad because I know we're having budgetary
yes.
discussions, but it doesn't mean that we're not gonna get it. It just takes a while. It's the same thing with the CPA. We don't get to use that revenue. It looks great until the match comes in, and usually we can't use it until the next year. But we know we're getting it. Okay? So here's the 2.5% increase in taxes right here.
25. So this
The
calculation.
25 is the tax, and this
Yes.
is the 2.5% increase we're allowed to do.
Yeah.
We lowball new growth, which is a conservative estimate.
Yes, I kept it same as last year. Normally, this number comes from assessor, and that position is vacant right now, so I kept it same as last year. And I think last year during this time, we didn't have assessor either, so.
Is there a zero missing though on new growth? So it's 100,000.
Here it is,
and
it's
it says
100,000
100,
here,
right.
it's 100, yeah.
I mean,
It's
not-
not 100,000.
Yeah, it's not.
Yeah.
But that's a comma, so I understood it.
And this is on my sheet, which is up there, so that's why.
All right. And this
But
is
the numbers-
overlay,
Yes.
so the public understands, that means if someone asks to be get an abatement on their taxes, it has to come out of some account. So that's an estimate of what those abatements would cost. I'm paying too much in taxes, the assessors, the Board of Assessors agrees. You're gonna get a refund of $200, it has to come out of that account.
And starting this year, senior work tax off is also part of this. It comes out of this money.
Oh, really?
Yes.
There you go.
The overlay.
Overlay, yes.
So if they get paid a certain money toward their taxes, we have to find a place for it. Okay?
We can.
So, and this is where we are this year, this is where we were last year.
Total
So-
revenue versus expenses.
This total revenue is 48,588,883,
Yep.
and it's the same, oh, it's 64 cents off here.
No, it should be.
No, I'm just kidding you. So that's the balanced budget. This is expenses, and this is revenue. Revenue is estimates. Okay, very good. Any questions on revenue? I just wanted the public to understand we have to balance the budget. And unfortunately, even if we get new cash from the state, we have to wait a year to use it. Well, technically. Anyway. Any questions? Are we done reviewing the budget? President Gomez, are we done reviewing the budget?
You all right? You done?
We're done.
At least one of the councilors have any questions?
Anybody on the call? I don't even know. We haven't had counselors on the call? I didn't even think
No,
we had.
no.
Okay. Well, thank you all. Wednesday we vote. And I'll talk to you about what those votes should look like. I think some, you might recall, there's lots of chargebacks to pay. Huh?
Well, we haven't voted to adjourn.
We haven't adjourned yet. I'm just telling you what's up. Wednesday is the vote, and all we're doing is talking about each department and voting on whether or not we're gonna recommend the budget as presented by the mayor. That's what we're doing. Hadel.
That EV charging station appropriation, do we discuss it here or it just becomes automatic part of the vote?
What are we talking about?
Is the EV charging station, which is now,
You mean that, those supplemental
Receipt reserve.
appropriations? That's,
not the supplemental, to give a vote to spend money out of the account? We
the
have to
PEG
send-
access?
Not the PEG
No,
access,
no.
but similar to that, we have that EV charging station for bikes and
Yep.
Was
motor
that
vehicles.
presented to us?
I don't
No,
recall that being on our agenda last week.
It's not the agenda, it's just a, there is monetary cap, but there's no actual money involved in it. It's just city council is, or finance committee is giving permission to spend up to $20,000 in a particular fiscal
I
year.
remember
and
doing that.
It expires every
You
June
have to do it
30th.
at the end of
Yes.
every fiscal year.
So we have to make a motion to approve that?
Yes, so,
Well, we could potentially vote on it in the first reading at the next city council meeting, but it's not on our agenda, so we can't discuss it on Wednesday.
Does it have to be done by
Can we do that
July 1?
July,
Mm.
every day in July?
no. So what happened, last year what happened is when it went to the city council for full council vote budget, that section was added during that time because it has no financial piece involved in it.
Let's do something. I will go to your office and I will amend the Wednesday agenda for next week and we vote for that. The same day of the budget.
We have to vote on it before July 1.
Yeah, that's
June
why.
30th.
So we have to amend the agenda. I'll say that when you.
As long as, and it's not monetary, it's a matter of,
Yep, I'll say that.
Just
Mission.
giving the cap, because
Right.
what happens is that account is eligible to get as much money as they can get, but they can only spend up
Right.
to what was
I
capped
remember
at.
that now. Okay.
I will say that when you, I will give it on the agenda. I
Okay.
will amend the agenda.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. All right, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
A motion to adjourn.
That works.
Counselor Peak.
Aye.
I know.
Counselor Denham.
That was great.
Bye.
Counselor Riss says aye. I'm stopping the recording. Am I?
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.